And so we were on our way home and going through Newbridge when a car suddenly appeared on our side of the road, and it was going quite fast, and I could see there was absolutely no way I could avoid it. I shouted out something to Lucy. I couldn't go left, I couldn't go right, so I put my foot on the brake, and I don't even think the brake pedal went all the way down to the floor before the crash happened. I'll show you my collar. I'll bring a collage in for range. I'm Alan, and I'm an ageing bloke who's sort of floating around, I don't know how to describe myself, looking for something but never finding it. How about that? Right, so can you see that without reflection?
Yeah.
So this is a collage basically I did when I was on the boat, and it's Lincoln Cathedral. So this is a view you get when you come into Lincoln. So it's up on the hill. But more recently I've been doing digital prints. Yours spelt wrong. Your Face is Like a Lemon is based on a poem by Ivor Cutler, who's a Scottish poet who's very popular in the 1970s. He was popular with the Beatles and all sorts. He wrote, he's sort of a bit of a existential poet.
I think primarily I would describe myself as a community artist, because that's what I've been doing for the longest time. I'm also mother and wife and homemaker and carer. I think it probably sums up most of my stuff. Right, we've got a arts and crafts group arriving between 1 and 1:15. Some arrive at 1 because they walk from their day centre, and some come by bus and some come by car. It's very hard to describe yourself because we're all kind of a mixture of lots of things. We could present ourselves differently depending on the audience. So to some, I might describe myself as an occupational therapist, stroke community artist, stroke activities coordinator, depending on what terms they understand.
I'm tall and ageing and perhaps sarcastic, cynical, but mildly optimistic.
They're usually about between 12 and 16 participants, but the 2 members of staff that come are fantastic, and they keep the momentum going. And then the group really quite enjoy being with me and Alan, and they love the space, and it's kind of what keeps us coming back because they really express that they love it. We were here in this building making clay, making pots, talking through with a group of adults with learning difficulties how to create and design things out of clay. We'd been laughing and joking as usual because this is a very jolly group, and then we took the car to drive home, which we've done 50 or more times, and then suddenly, it's hard to explain really, Alan, who was driving, said "oh dear" or something like that, and looking straight ahead saw that there was a car about to hit us straight on. After that I have no memory.
I just remember the sound of the crash. I looked down when I sort of opened my eyes and saw that my legs were still there, and I thought, I'm not paralysed. I've still got my legs and my arms. And I got out of the car. I could see that there was smoke coming from the front of the car and it smelt horrible. So I went round to the other passenger side of the car and tried to get Lucy out. But she couldn't move.
Then I have memories of passing out of consciousness and coming back into consciousness for the next, hard to say how long, probably an hour or so.
So the main thing was to try and keep her awake, so I had to keep on speaking to her. And I didn't look at the guy in the other car. I knew he was in a bad way because there were people gathered around the car, but I was concentrating on keeping Lucy alive, and we waited for the ambulance to arrive.
And then we were taken to hospital, and the hospital is literally on the hill from this office where we look at it once or twice a week. So I found myself in that hospital for 5 or 6 days, recovering from what turned out to be a fractured spine and extensive rib fractures.
I hadn't broken anything, so I was really lucky, and they let me out of hospital the same night.
Mostly, I'm glad to be alive, glad to have walked away effectively from the accident, even though the injuries sound horrific. Fundamentally, my body has recovered itself, and it gives you... I was always quite pleased with life, but I'm even more smug and joyful about it now because I can walk, talk, function and don't wreck myself.
Since then, whenever I hear a car brake suddenly or drive too fast, it makes me very jittery, so I get nervous, and I'd say the main thing is I don't really want to be involved with either being a passenger in a car or driving one.
Each person has got one between each other. He's not going to be talking annoying.
Your face is looking orange.
Thank you, dear.
Well, I thought that she was going to die, and I thought when we were in hospital they did a CT scan, and the surgeon came back and said, your brain is okay, but you've got a problem with your spine, which I'm a bit worried about. And obviously the first thought is she going to be paralysed? And I think the thought of I knew I'd be looking after her for the next 20 years or whatever, pushing her around in a wheelchair, and that just seemed so unfair because she was a passenger, I was a driver, there was another driver, and she was totally innocent in that situation. So my thought was, what have I done?
In Newport, the lovely training signal has been cancelled now, it's broken down, so we're just waiting for the Holyhead train, even though we've only got 10 minutes to go on the train really, but there's only 1 or 2 trains go to Cwmbran. It's always been a bit of a problem. Still, there is another train coming. But there's just that little niggling feeling of what could have been, and how he wouldn't have been able to cope with the guilt had I not been able to walk, or had I not recovered continence, or if I'd not been able to get up, because as the surgeon said, we got away with it. And that's the most time consuming thing, so that's why we tried to get here early, but today we failed. So we've got time to mark up sticks, put out paper and pencils, so that every part of the activity has minimum indecision or doubt about it. And I think that's one of the things they like, because we deliver it with such certainty that they feel safe in this space and that we're not going to let them fail. So if you look around at some of the work we've produced, it is all produced by the participants. We've really, one of our big things is it's got to be their marks, it's got to be their colours, it's got to be their choices. But we break the activity down to such an extent that they can participate in every single level.
Not driving is obviously very inconvenient for me and for other people who depend on me. But having said that, I quite like not being responsible, because I've been driving so much and taking people around, taking the family on holidays and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, I think I want to rest from driving, and I think also from I don't actually like cars or roads that much, so it gives me a good excuse to ride my bike a bit more, and I think I'd like to get more active and ride my bike, and perhaps not have to worry about driving.
When the pale moon shines on me, I'll think of you. When the pale moon shines on me, I'll think of you, with your face like a lemon.